Brian, it's October. You should do some Halloween builds. Well, I've been there, built that. Plus, I got one coming up, so let's talk about it. So the first Halloween build I ever did was this giant foam pumpkin carving. And you might be looking at this and thinking, hey, that looks kind of familiar. That's because this is not my original idea. I am emulating another pumpkin carving for this project. And that was actually on a real pumpkin, created somewhere around 2015. I can't actually find the original post to credit the original artist, so if you know, let me know, but it was around there. And one of the reasons I think it went viral is not only because this relief carving on the front is super detailed, but also because he put King Boo on the back as a cutout. That way, when you put a light on the inside, not only does it illuminate the relief carving, but it also projects that light of King Boo onto the backdrop of wherever you have your pumpkin. And I had never seen that idea up until that point, and I don't believe I've seen it since. So it's super unique and I love it. And the original artist was incredibly talented, and that is apparent in their pumpkin carvings. And I do think there's something beautiful about putting art onto something you know will rot right away, but I wanted my pumpkin to be displayed year after year, so I decided to carve mine on foam. So I went to Joann Fabrics and I got the largest foam pumpkin I could find, and that is this. And it's not great quality. The paint job is pretty awful. The internal thickness of the walls is varied all over the place, and it feels very cheap. It's a very open cell, light density foam, which is easy to carve, but kind of temperamental. And unfortunately, despite making it out of foam, this pumpkin has seen better days. If I were to lift the top off, you can actually see the original color of the foam compared to the nasty brown that it is now. So not exactly standing the test of time. And I've actually got a project coming up that I hope will solve that. So stay tuned for that and subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss it. But until then, we'll be able to display this one just fine. Let me turn the light on and give you a better idea of what the front looks like. And I'll grab the light so you can see better. And it's still not super easy to see, but you can see, hopefully, some of that inconsistency in the wall size, where it's super thin in these areas and super thick in these. So kind of a pain to work around, but we got the job done. And I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but I'm pretty pleased with how the relief carving turned out. I have some pictures from when I first carved it that I think give a better idea of how it originally looked. And you can't see the King Boo out of the back because I don't have a backdrop that is properly suited for that, but I have some images of that as well. So the method for carving this was basically I printed out the image and I taped it to the front, and then I used a thumbtack to poke holes all along the outline of any major details. And then when I took the image off, it was basically a giant connect the dots. So I used a combination of knives and I think a spoon at one point, but mostly it was a rotary tool that I used to hog out a lot of this foam. And because it is such an open cell, light, low density foam, it was really easy to cut through, but also kind of too easy in some areas. So I did go a little overboard in some of these lower areas, but I think with the light off, you can't really tell, and I think it looks pretty good. Unfortunately, other people tend to agree. It kills during Halloween. Trick-or-treaters love it. I get a ton of comments on it, and I love seeing people's faces light up when they see it and see the King Boo projected out the back. Super cool. My second Halloween build was the following year, I think 2018, and it is the same concept, but a very different pumpkin. So I really liked the previous project, and I felt a little bad about using a viral image for the subject matter, so I wanted to do it again, but this time with my own original design. So that's what this is. And you can tell that this pumpkin is quite a bit different from the last one. This one is actually from Michael's, and though it is half the size, I probably paid twice the price. And it is not great quality, even though it looks to be a good quality, and the outside looks good, it feels nice, it's nice and sturdy, but there are some issues with it, and we'll get to that in a minute. First, the design. So this is actually a Harry Potter scene, and I envisioned him walking through the Forbidden Forest and casting a Patronus charm. So that's his silhouette there, raising his wand and casting the charm. And the charm produces a stag, which is what the cutout is in the back. So he's casting the spell on the front, and then the ethereal stag is projected out the back. And then if you're familiar with the books or the movies at all, you may notice the triangle, which is part of the Deathly Hallows symbol. So the forest is the triangle on the outside. We have the central tree that is the line running through the center. And then the aura of the spell, the Patronus charm here, is the circle that kind of covers both of those, creating the Deathly Hallows symbol. So I'll turn the pumpkin light on again. And then I will grab the main lights, and I have a flickering bulb in there, which is why you can see the motion. But immediately you should be able to see these ribs that are running along horizontally on the inside. At least I hope you can see that. And I was able to tackle this one pretty well and get it looking somewhat consistent, but I actually had to cut the pumpkin in half so that I could come at these ribs from the inside and grind them down. So despite the fact that this was sold as a carving pumpkin or a carvable foam pumpkin, these internal ribs kind of suggest that it wasn't intended for that purpose, at least not these relief carvings. Maybe they had the cutout carvings in mind when they sold this pumpkin, but either way, it was very difficult and frustrating to work with. And that is also because this foam is super dense and a really tight, closed foam structure. So it took me probably twice as long to carve this one compared to the Luigi's Mansion one. And that's just because even with my most aggressive bits on my rotary cutter, it took forever to get through this material. And it was also really unforgiving. So you can see a couple of places where I went too deep because it is so thin, and I had to, unfortunately, cut some sections off of the inside and patch those holes. And it worked all right, but there are definitely some issues. Here's a couple of images of it working as intended and producing the Patronus charm out the back in a better environment for that. I actually took it to work for a few years and had my clients all really love it every time Halloween came around. So super big fan of this project. I loved doing it again, and I'm really proud of using my own original design for this one. For the third Halloween prop, we have to go outside, so I'll meet you out there. And here we have it, some sort of a Dementor, Grim Reaper, ghoul, ghost, specter, apparition going on. And this one is super cool, super spooky. A lot of the kids are scared of this one, especially when the wind goes, and you can see it is blowing in the breeze a little bit, but it'll actually start swaying towards the door, which is a really cool effect with the wind and how it comes through this area. So I did this one in, I think, 2018 or 2019. I'll have to check the note. I found in the Notes app basically a shopping list for this build. But basically it's coat hanger wire that is bent into the finger shapes, and then that is wrapped in masking tape and then painted black. And you can see that the paint is wearing off over the years, and I should give it another coat of paint, but it kind of gives a bone look with it as it is. But I do want to fix that up and paint it again. But yeah, this is just coat hanger wire and then chunks of masking tape wrapped in more masking tape to create the little knobbly finger bones. And then we have obviously a wrist and arm bone with the two separate bones going on here. You can see the coat hanger wire that is poking through in some areas and how it's all kind of tied together. And then we have coat hanger wire joints here so that it can move in the breeze. And then there is a foam skull also coated with masking tape and painted. And I carved out the lips there to be giving like the kiss of death from Harry Potter, the Dementors. The fabric is an old Halloween costume. At least the black part is an old cloak that I had from growing up. And then this is cheesecloth that is dyed black and then spray painted black in other areas to give it some dimension. and to look old and aged and withered. And I think it all comes together pretty well and gives a really cool effect, especially when you tie it into the ceiling in different places to make it look like it is flying, and the wind helps you out with that. So yeah, it is actually coated in liquid starch as well to give a little bit of rigidity to the fabric. And I think that in combination with the breeze and how it all flows and dangles together, it is a super cool prop, very fun build, and yeah, spooky. So these are the Halloween builds that I've done so far, and I'm actually working on another one as we speak. As I alluded to earlier, it is going to be a refresh of this pumpkin, because not only do we have the issue with the browning, but there's also some cracks from where I dropped it, and I actually broke off a piece on the eyes. So this pumpkin definitely needs another life, and I think the 3D printing could be a good option for that. And if the technique works, I might be able to even offer it to other people who want to print out their very own Luigi's Mansion pumpkin. So if that interests you at all, subscribe to the channel and stick around, because that video should be coming out pretty soon. Either way, thank you so much for joining me on this prop showcase. I had a lot of fun going over these builds and reliving some of those memories. And of course, thank you to Thad Carpenter and Thomas Computes for being my top supporters. That support really does mean a lot and goes a long way. I'll see you in the next video, hopefully very soon. Oh snap, you made it to the end. Now that's dedication. If you like this video, you might like some of the other life-size props that I've made. Check out one of the videos on the side, or check out the full playlist. And click the circle in the center to subscribe. I love you. Blop.